So,
Yes.
here we are. This is exciting. Just quickly, how do you feel when you hear that whole story of your life kind of put into 3 pages recounted?
Emotional.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Talk to me about that.
I suppose just emotional as in when I hear about the challenges, it takes me back to some of the, very challenging times, and that's emotional. That's something that stirs up times when, I've thought, can I go on any further, or, do I want this, or do I not want this? And so yeah, that's definitely why it stirs up emotion, because sometimes when I've been through rough patches in my life, I don't go back to them very often because I'm busy doing my life now.
Yeah.
And hearing, I don't know, I haven't read or seen that for years, so hearing that again for the first time in years was like, wow, that's emotional, because it's I've lived through all of them,
Yeah.
and they were over a long time. So yeah.
And that was a question that I hadn't planned, so thank you for
That's all right. That's all right.
Suzzanne's given me freedom tonight. I've got a list of questions, but she's given me freedom, and I asked her, hey, is there a safe word that you'd like to give me in case I ask something? She hasn't done that, so we'll see how we go.
Don't worry, that's fine.
But tell me about kind of growing up as Suzzanne Laidlaw. What was that like?
I think growing up was a pretty standard, very privileged Western Australian kid. Grew up in Wembley Downs. My dad was a small businessman. He had a small office equipment business, and I was just myself and my brother, and my mother brought me up with this attitude of gratitude, I suppose, from when I was a very young child. We were very much churchgoers, and it was, you've been born in the most luckiest place in the world. And there was Ethiopia and all that going on. And so I was always seeing all these terrible people, pictures of, why was I born in Wembley Downs and not there? And, we had sliced bread, and the man that came around in the truck with vegetables, and there was people starving. And I would just remember as a young child being filled with gratitude that, how am I so lucky? How am I so lucky that I'm born here? And my mum sort of taught me that the reason why I was lucky enough to be born here is that I was given the obligation or the duty, or entrusted with the obligation or duty to make a difference in other people's lives, because I was gifted to be born somewhere so fortunate as WA that I could make a difference in other people's lives. And so that was the duty, or that was the attitude that my mum brought me up with, saying, you've been given this gift, don't squander it. Do what you can do with it to make a difference in other people's lives. And so we always did. We would always do as much as we, sponsored children in other countries, and we would, do things for people less fortunate all the time. It was just part of what we did, which I think we should all do, which is what opportunity is about.
Yeah, and we'll get to that, so that's fine. But was that countercultural at the time? Was you coming across other families doing similar things?
Yeah, I think growing up in Wembley Downs, sort of City Beach, it was there was a lot of people that had a lot of wealth, but I didn't. I was a young child. I didn't really know what they were doing, and we were a very tiny little school, and we were always doing things. So I don't know. I didn't really have a judgment on that. I just remember thinking that we were all very lucky, and that was up to us to make a difference, and that was it.
What schools did you go to?
Holy Spirit Primary in City Beach, and then I went to Siena Ladies College, and that turned into Newman.
Oh yeah, very good.
Yeah.
It's just my curiosity.
That's all right. That's okay.
So then again, kind of fast forwarding ahead a little bit, how did you meet your husband?
I had just finished my school, my leaving, and I decided that I was going to get a job. And I opened the paper. I'll never forget, it was just after New Year. It was the first business day. I opened the paper and thought, there was a job that said travel. And it's like, oh yes,
Awesome.
I want to travel. And so I saw this job that said travel. I went for the interview. I got the job. My first interview, my first job ever. And came home and was so excited. And I'm like, they're going to send me to Melbourne on a business trip straight away. And I got the job. I was 17. And I was just delighted with all these skills I had of, TEE, arts, sport, English, like nothing, no academia at all. And it was selling encyclopedias door to door. straight commission.
Yeah.
And Mum and Dad are like, everybody gets the job, love. And straight commission is not really a good idea. And I'm like, no, they're sending me to Melbourne. And little did I know, they send 17-year-olds as far away from their parents as possible, especially from private little innocent schoolgirls. And so I got shipped off to Melbourne. So then here's my husband who comes to Australia for a holiday, sees an ad in the paper, free travel. Scotsman, very canny with their money. Free travel, got to see Australia. And so he got a job at the same time as I did. So I met him the first week when I got my job.
Yeah, wow.
And so we got shipped to Melbourne, and we were actually staying in the same apartment together.
Yeah.
So we were friends for a good year. And then one day we were very good mates, but we became good mates, but just friends. He was a lot older than me. He was 9 years older than me. And one day he said to me, Suzie, can you not fall in love with me? And I was like taken back. I'm like, seriously? You're 9 years older than me? And that was like, he was an old man. He was 28 or 27 or so, 27. And he's like, just think about it. And I was like, okay. But we got on really well. And then, within a couple of weeks, I'm like, okay, I'll give it a go then. And we were married on my 20th birthday and have been happily married since, 33 years later.
That's amazing.
And I remember reading a letter that his sister had written to him. In those days, they used to write letters from Scotland saying, I think it's disgraceful that you would marry some poor little young Western Australian girl just to get your residency in Australia. That is a terrible, not a good thing to do. And I read the letter and was like, oh no, what have I done? And he's like, isn't it like that, Suzie? I love you, Suzie. And she didn't think it was right. So yeah, and she's had 2 or 3 marriages since. So yeah.
That answers that question.
Yeah, exactly.
What was his background? What was he doing before?
Engineer.
Yeah, okay.
Engineer, and he just wanted free travel, same.
Yeah.
And he didn't care about the straight commission thing either.
Yeah.
And neither did I.
So probably a really key question is, did you actually sell any encyclopedias?
I did. I was one of the top in Australia.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do you remember your sales pitch?
No, not really. It was. We would say we're here to talk about educational children's needs. That's what we would say when we knock on the door.
Yeah.
And then they'd look at us and they'd go, and I go, I'm not religious. They'd be worried that it was, someone, with the Bible, and I'd be, it's okay, I've not got a Bible, I've just got an encyclopedia. And they're like, come in. So it was fun. Yeah.
How long did you have that job for?
I did the selling encyclopedias for a year, and then I got promoted to sales manager, and then sales trainer, and then I was national sales trainer. So I was to train people to sell encyclopedias. Yeah. Did
your parents ever go, sorry, Suze, you were right?
No, they were just happy that I was happy.
Yeah, great.
That was fine. I used to ring them, reverse charge from Melbourne, and they would never accept the charges. Because you know how the operator goes, will you accept the charges? Because if it's a reverse charge call, it's very expensive. Yeah. But it was because of the time difference. It was me saying, I'm home, ring me. So I would ring and say, reverse charge call, and then they go, no thank you, hang up, and the operator would come back and go, I'm very sorry, love. Ed said no. And I would go, okay, thanks. And then I'd hang up, and then Mum and Dad would ring back and say, hello, how you going? Yeah. So it was funny. They were probably thinking I was a distressed teenager from Melbourne whose parents weren't talking to her.
That's right.
Yeah.
Instead you were hacking the system.
Yeah, exactly. It was before text to say, I'm home, ring me, because I can't afford to ring you.
Yeah.
That's what it was.
So then you got married at 20?
Yes, my 20th birthday I got married. Which I have a photo of somewhere here, you'll see it at some stage. Yeah. Renee's flicking through the photos, we just picked a whole bunch. That was right at the end. You'll see it at the end. You'll see it at the end.
That's fine. How long after you got married until the night of the
accident?
Yeah.
The accident was the 18th of May 1998, and we got married in 1980. No, 1987. So we were married in 85. So just 2 years after.
A couple of years.
Yeah. So I was 22.
Yeah.
A baby, even though I thought
really
I was
young.
a big grown woman,
Yeah.
I was a baby.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Can you walk us through that
What
experience
happened?
that night?
Yeah, as it said in the beginning of the story, I remember having, and some of you have probably heard this before, but I remember we'd been to a show at the theatre in Subiaco. We'd been to see Kevin Bloody Wilson. And I remember having a gin and tonic, and we were driving home, and I remember sitting at the traffic lights, and you know when you're that half asleep, and whether it's because I'd had a gin at half time, but it was warm in the car, it was May, it was a bit cold outside, it was very cold outside, must have been early winter, and I remember being a bit sleepy at the traffic lights, and I remember having this euphoric feeling coming over me of, I've made it. I'm a real adult. This is what being an adult is. This is what I've dreamt of. Like, I've got life sussed. I've got a job that pays a wage. Like, that was amazing, having a job that paid a wage. I could get paid when I was sick. I'd never had that before. I had my own house, so we didn't live in a caravan. Door-to-door encyclopedia live in caravans. So I had a house, I had a gorgeous husband, he had a job, we had our own car. It was just like, I had this euphoric feeling of, oh my God, this is what real people live like. Every day they have this feeling of being like made, like I'm so excited. And it was very calm, there was no wind, and I remember thinking, it's almost scary, it's too perfect. It's just so, I'd never felt that perfectness before in life. And then when we got home, I went straight to bed. David said, oh look, I just feel like a port. So my dad had left the mower in our back family room with a little can of petrol. And so he saw the open fire, that it was cold, and thought, oh, if I go and get a cap of petrol and walk through the kitchen and put a cap of petrol on the fire, that will get the fire going quickly, and I'll have a pot, have a quick fire, and then go to bed. So he was walking, holding the can of petrol, had a woolen jumper on and had a trench coat on top that had a nylon lining. So he was walking through the kitchen, holding the little tiny jerry can, and opened the lid. As he opened the lid, the static electricity and the fumes just went boom, and it just exploded in his face. So he was basically doused in petrol from head to toe. And so that fire caught on we had polished floorboards. It was that whole part of the house was fully on fire, fully alight on fire. And so then his immediate reaction was, I'll rush to the shower. So he rushed to the shower, which is the room directly in front of our bedroom, and had the shower on full bore, like it was so much power. This was when we were allowed to have really powerful showers. It was just exploding everywhere, no minimisers on our shower then. It was going everywhere, but the weirdest thing was it wasn't making any difference at all. The flames were like, they were just, and head to toe, like everything was on fire. And so when I'd only been asleep for maybe 10 minutes at the most. And I woke up to him screaming, and he was just screaming, Susie, Susie, Susie. And I woke up, was like, what's going on? What's going on? And I jumped out of bed, and the weirdest thing was, because we'd been painting all the rooms, we had 3 bedrooms, and this was the 3rd room, I couldn't find the door handle. And I couldn't find the light switch. And the more he was screaming, the more I was panicking, and I'm like, trying to find it. Eventually I found the light switch. The power had been burnt out at this stage, so the light didn't go on. So again, I'm like, where is the handle? How do I get out of this room? And eventually I found it, flung it open, and right in front of me, it's a hallway away. It's just like from here to here. He's standing there, fully alive, like whoosh, and the smell, the heat, it was disgusting. And he was just like, he had layers just pouring off him. It was like he had rubber gloves that he was hanging off in his ears, and everything was just, it was all just melting. It was disgusting. It was horrible. And so I just thought the quickest thing I could do is I just got some towels off the ground and patted, smothered the fire as quickly as I could. And he was a melted mess, and then just got him and dragged him through the house, and everything he touched everything he touched with his hands was bits of skin was just melting off on the walls. And then I just dragged him through the house, through the back of the house, and I got him into our swimming pool. And I just thought that's the best place for him. And so I put him in the swimming pool and then ran next door as quickly as I could, because we're at midnight now, banged on their door and screamed really hard, and didn't wait for them to open, and just screamed, "Fire, ambulance, come quick," and then just ran back as quickly as I could and jumped in the pool with him. And I just kept putting his head underwater because he was all burnt off the face, and I knew he must have been breathing. He'd been breathing in flames as he was screaming for me, and he just kept screaming, "My wee house, Susie! My wee house is on fire! My wee house is burning! Save my wee house!" And I'm like, "It's okay. The house will be fine." And so I just stood in the pool, waiting for the ambulance and putting his head under, and by the time the ambulance came, our pool was covered in skin. It was just covered. It was just totally covered in skin. It was disgusting. It just kept melting off. So that was sort of, and then the ambulance came and we got it. And the funny thing is, there's some weird things that happened that night. One thing was weird was only neighbours that came were our next door neighbours. Everyone would have heard. It was a very quiet, crisp Perth night. No one else came. We just moved in. They must have thought we were having a fight. We don't fight, right? But no one came. The only people came were our next door neighbours, and they're an Aboriginal family of 5 children that were totally ostracised in our neighbourhood. And they were the only family that came, and all their kids came. They all brought buckets. Kids were little kids. The whole family came to help. And then the next day, when I went to see the arson wanted me, and they taped the house, and they wanted to interview me, and they were asking my next door neighbour, "Do you think that, from your opinion, had they had a fight, she tried to burn him and then she tried to drown him?" And this next door neighbour that I barely met went psycho at the cops. Yeah. He went psycho. He's like, "How dare you? We had our family here. She saved his life. He'd be dead if it wasn't for her. And no one else came, and rah, rah, rah." And he just went off. He said, "How could you even say that to her? Her husband's in ICU." And he just went totally and absolutely psycho at her. Yeah. Which was a really, it was just bizarre. You could see what had happened. So yeah, and then day 3 was when he gave up, when I was standing next to him, and everything just went and went blank. And then I didn't actually speak to him till about, I think 3 weeks later. He actually started to talk to me when he got out of ICU and got transferred to the burns unit. And that was the first time I actually spoke to him, and he said, "I had some really weird dreams, Susie." And I'm like, "Tell me about them, what were they like?" This was the first time we spoke. And he said there was this really weird dream where I was in this glass room and I died, and you were next to me, and my parents were behind the glass, and I don't know why they were there, and I had a choice to stay or go, and I knew I'd really effed up royally, but I decided that I would come back because you were there, and we had made so many plans for the next 30, 40 years of our life together, and I didn't want to let you down because we just started. And I'm like, "That happened." And he's like, "What do you mean that happened? How could my parents be there?" And I said, "They've been here for 3 weeks. They had to go. They weren't allowed in. You were isolated, and they never actually got to talk to you. He was never conscious when they were here." And I said, "That happened. And he described the whole ICU room, and his eyes had never actually been open in ICU. They were just a black charred medicine ball mess. As Kim will probably tell you, because Kim was there at the time, but they asked me to bring a picture of what he looked like, so they knew who they were actually treating. Right. Because his head was honestly like a medicine ball. It was a black charred mess that had all bits of split oozing out. No eyes, no nose, no ears. It was just a round mass of charred mess. It didn't actually look like a human's head at all. It was so swollen. And so they said, "Bring the photo in so we can see who this person actually is, so we can see who we're treating." But he said we just started and he wasn't going to let me down. So he knew it would be tough, and it sure was.
Because that's just the start then, isn't it?
Yeah.
To go through the whole process of just healing and rehabilitation.
Yes.
How did you
It was hard because
Yeah.
when he got home, he still couldn't use his hands because they were going to amputate his fingers. At one stage, they had bolts in his fingers because they were very badly burnt. And when he got home from the burns unit, he still couldn't feed himself. He had pressure garments on to stop the keloid scarring. He couldn't actually pull them up himself. I had to pull them up so he couldn't go to the toilet himself. So I had to help him go to the toilet. That has complications as well. He couldn't put his own suppositories up. And when you're on bad painkillers, you have to have suppositories. So here's me, 22-year-old new bride, didn't think I'd have to go places like that. It was, took our relationship to a totally different level of intimacy that I had not dreamt of, ever. Definitely not thought that ever would happen. But, they were, they were things you have to do. So he was in and out of, once he was released from the burns unit, he was in and out of hospital from the plastics to the rest of the year having different skin graft operations. So, yeah.
How did you function financially at that time?
His company he worked for supported him the whole time, which was amazing, and I was working full time. So he'd ring me up with his elbow on speed dial and say, "Suzzanne, I need a clap, come home quick." "I'm on my way, love, hold it." And so that's what I would do. I would drive from Nedlands to Carnarvon as quickly as I could. And he was so constipated I didn't have to worry about an accident happening, but we did need to seize the moment if it was going to happen. Sorry, there's a couple of nurses in the room, so they'll cope with it. And funnily enough, Kim was David's physio all those years ago, from that period of our life. So that was, the start of his 10 years of self-destruction, because he hated how he looked. He was good looking, as you probably saw in the photo when we first got out. He was good looking, and then he turned into someone who kids would, look the other. I mean, he had the face mask for a year.
Yeah.
The job's face mask, which looks pretty scary for people.
Yeah.
To look at, especially when there's weeping bits through it that soak through it, and then you have to wash them and pull them off, and it's not nice. So yeah.
How did you, as a wife, you've just married this guy, and things have changed completely. How do you process that and consider, I'm going to spend the rest of my life with this character?
I think for myself, when I've made a commitment, I make a commitment. And when you love someone, you love them for the person they are. And if you love someone and they're going through a challenge, well, the last thing I'm going to do is leave them. I mean, Jesus, he had the worst thing ever happen to him. I wasn't going to leave him or desert him. I wouldn't do that. But oddly enough, he got involved with the burn support group afterwards, and most of their marriages haven't survived. Because the people, it changed their relationships afterwards.
Yeah.
So, and it just made us stronger. Because, if someone's going through a trauma, you want your loved one with you. And when you go through a trauma, well, through my own experiences, every trauma I've gone through, I've got more understanding of myself. I've got more empathy of other people going through similar challenges. So I've grown as a person through each challenge. And so we grew as a couple through that challenge. It wasn't easy, but it still made us stronger through those challenging times.
And so that kind of led to the 10 years of self-destruction that you talk about. There must have been some challenges in there as well.
I hated living with an alcoholic. I hated it. But I knew that he was in pain. And I wasn't, I made a promise I wasn't going to leave him. I have no idea what photos Renee's putting up. That's my husband's best friend when he was at the depths of self-destruction, of them just a normal night of drinking and smoking way too much. And his best friend passed away in his early 50s. And so that was a reminder of him to stop that life and to change.
Yeah.
So.
With a random motorcycle in the corner.
Yes, as you do.
Yeah, cool.
He actually had, I think, 3 in the room at that time.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Now that's a yoga studio, that room. It was so big it had 3, a Norton, a BSA and a Triumph in it. But now it's a yoga studio. So it's a big room.
Yeah, that's phenomenal.
Yeah.
I just, you gloss over, well, I just glossed over, 10 years of self-destruction. That's a long time to be journeying with someone and just seeing that they're in pain and seeing them destroy relationships around them, I'm sure.
Yes.
You're a ability to see past the immediate response that you're getting to the pain and to what's going on inside is profound. I don't think I'm the only one in this room who would consider that. What do you put that down to? Would that be kind of the attitude of gratitude from growing up, or is there something else that would have assisted that particular mindset?
I think probably just a commitment to him from the beginning, that I was going to be there through thick and thin. And when someone is going through a challenge, I find, and if they admit that they're having challenges, and if they admit they're working through them, I'm not going to leave him. If he was like his best friend who said, I don't have a problem, there's nothing wrong with me. I mean, I had the conversation with his best friend a few years before he died and said, you're killing yourself. You will not see your daughter graduate from high school. And he didn't. She then moved in with us because he died. So, and when I said to him, you will not see your daughter get married or graduate from high school, he said, I'm flying, Susie, leave me alone, I'm flying. That was what he said. But David was always on a path of trying to improve himself.
Yeah, right.
Always on a path, never on a path of I'm fine, I'm just going to be an alcoholic, I'm just going to, eat myself to death. He was always on a path of, trying to improve himself, but then he would have these very down times, and the depths of despair. But he got through them. And when someone's working hard to be better, I'm not going to leave him. I'm not going to say, goodbye. I mean, I did say to him, if I am still living with a drunk and an alcoholic, and you still continue to self-destruct yourself by the time the kids finish high school, I will not be here anymore. I did make that. That was one thing that I did say to him, but he heard that loud and clear and decided to change, which was good. Which was very good.
I can imagine. So talk to me about your then health issues that sort of sprung.
Yes, well, the kids were very young. I think there was a picture there of how young my darlings were, and living with an alcoholic that liked to self-destruct himself. And there was still, burns go on for a long time, so he was still in a lot of pain. There was, a lot of pain with the burns, with his hands, with his face, with his legs. There was a lot of continual pain over the years. So my biggest fear in life was me dying and leaving my two gorgeous kids with a drunk husband, because I would sometimes come home and he would be drunk. I remember once I came home and he was unconscious on the park in front of our house. And in the story she says, once I slept in the car, more than once, many times I slept in the car. Many times I bundled the kids and drove down to Scarborough Beach and slept there for the night with the kids in the back of the car. That would be a normal thing. And then, we're having a picnic at the beach tonight, kids. Fantastic, Mum. Let's get the doodles, roll ourselves up and go to sleep at the beach and lock the cars and lock the door, and let's all cuddle up and go to sleep. We'll pretend we're camping. And so, my worst nightmare was, and it's what you focus on. Some people say if you focus on something, you attract it to you. My worst fear was dying and leaving these kids with David drunk. I remember once coming home and the kids told me he'd gone to the bottle shop and left them because he needed some more drink. I'm like he was 3 or something. Anyway, I got told I had 5 years to live. I was doing a triathlon, and I had this terrible pain in my stomach, and I thought I must be having an appendicitis or something. I went to the doctors the next day. They did an ultrasound. They said, it looks like you've got a cyst on your ovary. It looks like it's cancer. We'll get you to see Hammond as soon as possible. Go and see him in oncology. He looked at it. He said, yep, it looks like cancer. We're going to get you straight into oncology. Looks like you've got cancer to the ovaries. We'll take it off. And so they did. And then a week later, I got the test results back. They said, we've taken that ovary, but we're really sorry. It's riddled throughout you. It's not, good news is it's not cancer, but it's just as bad. It's eating up all your organs. There was endometriosis, which had eaten the lower bowel, the cervix, the appendix, the uterus. It was just all a mess. And so over, I think, 5 or 6 different surgeries, they just kept taking bits out as it kept eating it, because as long as I kept a slither of an ovary, it kept feeding it. So the eventual choice to try and rid it altogether and not to have a permanent bag was go on a drug program, get rid of all ovaries at 33, get rid of everything, and go on HRT that was not enough to still feed it. So I had to go off all hormones and heavy drugs for 6 months in the attempt to kill it forever. And they weren't sure whether it would or not, but it did. So I was given my worst news when the doctor looked at us both and said, I'll give you 5 years maximum. Because at that stage I was coughing blood. It was in my lungs and it was also coming out of both holes. So I had it in my bowel. That's why they did a lower bowel resection. So there was blood not in good places. So we eventually got rid of it, thank goodness.
Yeah, wow. And so what age were you when you...
33, same. Jesus here, David was 33 as well. So was I, so was JC, yeah. Apparently it's a thing. A 33 is a thing. So hopefully no one here is under 33 because we've all got through it. Oh, Renee! Sorry! We're going to Rio.
I have 33 experience. So,
Did you?
Yeah,
there you go.
For another time. And my wife is currently 33, so...
Right. You've got exciting things.
Exciting things, yeah. So anyway,
Good.
this is not about me.
Okay. I could twist it around.
Yeah, no, it's good. So there's so much to that, and thank you again for just sharing and really just being open. Yeah, Lisa, please ask a question.
Did you get burned at all in that fire?
No, that was a bit miraculous because I was naked. I don't sleep with clothes on, so I'm pulling a burning man through a house, and I had not one burn on me.
Wow.
And I actually went back into the burning house because when I realised I was naked and there was an ambulance coming, I thought, oh, I better get my dressing gown and I better get my handbag. And so the smoke, it was stupid, but like 22, I'm like, oh, I've no clothes on, ew. The smoke was to here. So I crawled under the smoke and went in the house that was fully on fire, under the smoke, and ran into my bedroom or crawled and just pulled the first article of clothing, which was a dressing gown, because I knew where it was, just dragged it and my handbag dragged out.
Wow.
And some people are really shocking. Someone stole my handbag after. So on top of having a husband in ICU burn, I had no wallet and no credit cards and no cash. Because they stole my whole handbag. Everything was gone. Because, burnt house, not secure, let's go and see what we can steal. Everything's black in the house. But there's a handbag, we'll steal that. So yeah, weird, like really weird. Yes.
So when you knocked on the neighbour's door...
Yeah, or banged on it and screamed, yeah.
You hadn't got...
No, I was naked, totally. That's why I didn't wait around for them to answer the door. I just banged and screamed about midnight. There was no one out there, and they were right next door, so it only took me like 5 seconds to just run and run back.
Yeah.
So it was quick. And I'm a quick runner. Yeah. I think the worst thing when I got sick was having an ileostomy bag because it didn't like me. If anyone's ever had, I think there's a picture of me with my stoma. It's like a pair of lips coming out of your stomach where faeces just comes out non-stop all day long. And it's not much fun. And what happened is my skin's very sensitive. That didn't like the stoma patches. So every time I'd rip a patch off, it would rip some of my skin off. So after having it for a few months, I had a round, raw patch. And so you can't move the stoma. So the stickers wouldn't stick because it was weepy and wet. And so it just, it was not good. And the pain of raw faeces from the ileostomy going on the red raw patch that was being constantly skin pulled off was the pain was like, ooh, it was horrible. So I got a bit of a mess towards the end of it because I couldn't go anywhere without having, leakage or pain or without having to do something with this thing that didn't stop. So it became hard. And again, intimacy was a bit difficult as well because you've got a bag of poo in between you. So, it just not good. More challenges in a marriage.
How long did you have that for then?
I think it was about 4 months maybe.
Yeah, wow.
It seemed like forever.
Yeah.
And luckily, I didn't have to keep it. Luckily.
Yes.
Because that was, a concern.
Yeah. Let's shift gear for a second. Talk to me about...
Happy things.
Yeah. No. So business experience and some of your biggest challenges or problems when it's come to your business.
To to business, I suppose again it challenged the marriage, but in a good way because we learnt from it. We started our own business together when David was burnt because we just he left his job eventually because it was too hard because he was in a sales role and he was disfigured and it wasn't working even though they'd supported us very well. He stayed there for maybe a couple of years and then we decided we'll start our own business together and then we're together. My dad had an office equipment business and he said, look, I'll give you the back room by yourselves and you can start your own business. And it was good because we could be together and we just did our own business. Built it up really well, sold it after 15 years and then we've been dabbling in a bit of property investing and so we ended up deciding after we sold the business to semi-retire because we bought the building too, so we thought again, some of those, silly things, thinking that we're doing, getting too big for our boots, getting brains in a bull market mixed up. Anyway, we got about maybe 15 or so properties. We're doing really well. We didn't have jobs, we'd sold the business. So we're turning over properties like stock and doing, subdivisions and renovations and everything. And we're doing very well. And then the GFC came and hit us. And we didn't have jobs, so we had no income. So everything came toppling down. So we ended up nearly losing the house. We had 6 people in the house, 4 kids. We got an extra couple in by then into the house. And so I started a business with $1.8 million debt. And thought, what do I love? I love business and I love helping people and coaching people. I've done a lot of sports coaching for fun. And so I thought, I'm going to help other people in business. And that's where I started with a huge mortgage. Luckily, we paid our house off. So that saved us in the GFC because the bank took our house. They had it as collateral, which was amazing that we were lucky enough. But we pretty much everything else just went through a song. It all just came crumbling down. So all the debt got put into one big debt of 1.8 mil and no jobs. And David said, I'm unemployable. I'm in my mid-50s. Who would employ me? And I said, well, I'll just have to start a business doing something I love. So that's what I did. And that was a decade ago.
How long did it take you to get rid of all that debt?
I'm still paying it off now.
Yeah.
I'm still paying it off now. Yeah. But we've had an amazing lifestyle and we had 4 beautiful children at home and we're all very, very close and a very, very happy house and it's been a wonderful journey of learning and I think I've got it down to, I don't know, the financial lady over there would tell me, I think it's probably down to about 550 now, which is amazing in 10 years. With getting finishing our daughter off through St Mary's. I remember once we couldn't pay the fee, so we had to sell a motorbike. It's like, oh gosh, I have to sell a motorbike. Oh, I'm so sad for you. Yes, we'll sell a motorbike to pay for St Mary's for another quarter. Yeah. And getting kids through degrees. We've had 3 degrees come through the house, 2 masters, and we supported them through all of that. And that was through me starting my business. It's amazing. So where
did you pick the extra kids up from?
One, the dad died, so we picked that one up, and the other one was our daughter at 15 fell in love with a country boy. Yes. And then she said, when I'm a big adult, when I go to uni, and I'm a proper adult at 18, I thought I'd be a proper adult at 20, she thought 18. Yeah. She said, we're going to get a house together and move out and be real adults. And I'm like, cool, sweet. So he comes up from the country, and they go, looking for rentals. And they came back and we couldn't find one. There was like queues everywhere of people and we put in applications and they wouldn't want us. And they said, well, can Dylan just stay here for a couple of weeks till we find someone? And my husband's like, yes, but he's staying in the spare room. And my son's like, I'll stab you if you go in my sister's room. Literally, that's what he said, older brother. And 8 years later, they moved out about, 6 weeks ago. Yeah. They just bought their own home and they have a beautiful 2.5-year-old that I got to share the first 2.5 years with him. And I was there at their birth and have loved having them. He's a beautiful grandson and my son-in-law is a beautiful son-in-law. So, yeah. That's great. So that's why we had extra people. Yeah, and then they've made an extra one.
Yeah, that's right. It keeps growing.
Yeah, exactly.
I want to talk about your athletic accomplishments as well. So we have, as you said, your favourite item in the world.
My favourite material item in the world, yes.
How long have you been doing triathlons?
About 20 years probably.
20 years.
Yeah.
What was it that drew you to that?
It was after I got sick, really. It was after I got sick, and I just was in such a bad shape that I just wanted to get out of it. I'd been reading Lance Armstrong's book, It's Not About the Bike, and watched him win the Tour for the first time after he'd recovered from testicular cancer, and I was just like, oh my God, that's amazing what he's done. It's like amazing. And I remember walking over the road and doing a lap around the oval and thinking, I've done a lap, that's so exciting. And then I remember starting to slowly jog, and then I remember going around the park, and I just slowly but surely set little targets, and got invited with some people that said, you know, can you swim and run and cycle, and got involved in triathlon. I just met them just before I got sick, so I had a very slight taste of it. And then, yeah, it just went from there, and someone had said to me something about qualifying for the Worlds, and I remember looking it all up and seeing that in the World Championships they take the top, I think it was 15 from each age group, and I remember looking what I'd have to do and setting a big plan, what qualifier races would I have to do, and where there'd be the least people there to get the most amount of points. I remember ringing up the Devonport Triathlon Club and saying, I hear you've got a race, it's a world champion qualifier, have you got many people in the 35 age group registered? And he's like, we've got like 6 people registered. And I'm like, okay, I'm coming. and I remember they picked me up in a black 4-wheel drive BMW. It's like, we'll pick you up, we'll put you up, come on. This was someone from the Tri Club, and I was like, this is amazing. And I think I got like 3rd or something, and it was just basically getting points to turn up, whereas other races where there was 50 people in my age group, I wouldn't have stood a chance.
Yeah.
So, and that was for the first World Champs in Queenstown, which was amazing, because I just couldn't believe that I was here, was meant to be dead, and I'm swimming, and there's snowy mountains and glaciers in a lake, wearing the green and gold. It was just like, I had tears in my eyes in the last leg, because I'm like, this is like, how is this happening? This is like incredible. And it was just, such an honour to be able to do that, because I didn't think it was going to be possible.
And then you did it 3 more times after
Yeah.
Yeah, that's extraordinary. Where were the other
The other ones, I did. They had them in Perth, and that was an interesting, challenging race, because there was bushfires and it was in the city. I don't know if anyone remembers when they had the World Champs here, and it was just covered in smoke. The city, it was the most horrible race, because we were breathing in smoke. There was massive bushfires in the city. The next one was in Vancouver, and the last one was probably the best, probably the most special one, because I'd just been told, my dad died in his early 50s of heart disease. He had a heart attack, and I've got the same heart problem as he has. I was told by doctors, you can't compete at that level in triathlon anymore, you'll need to slow down. And I'm like, okay, so what does that mean? And they're like, you have to wear a heart rate monitor, you can't get your heart rate over a certain beats per minute. So I was like, okay, all right, that's fine. I've done my wildest dreams. I've represented Australia 3 times. I've done, Ironman and God knows how many half Ironmans. I'm so happy. And then we're watching the Olympics, and the Olympics is in London, and we're watching with my friends, and they said the next World Championships that will be on this exact course in 18 months' time. And I was with a bunch of triathletes watching this race, and I looked at everyone and I'm like, well, that's a new goal. And everyone's like, hold on, you can't do that. You've just been told you can't. And I'm like, well, I've been told I have to keep my heart rate on. They didn't tell me I can't qualify to go to represent Australia and celebrate. They just said, keep your heart rate down. So I'm like, okay, I'll just pick my races to qualify. And as long as I get in, I can be the last person to qualify. All I wanted to do was get there. That's all I wanted to do. And so I got in the team. And everyone said it wouldn't happen, and I did, and it was the best race I've ever done. I did it as slow as I could, because I soaked up every minute. It was 10 deep of people cheering. The whole of London was enclosed. Like, we went, I think it was 8 laps. I think there was a photo. Yeah, I'm waving at the Queen. We went past the Queen, Buckingham Palace, 4 times, and every time I It was incredible. It was such an amazing experience. We went down the Marble Arch. There was an Aussie next to me, and he looked at me, and his eyes were welling up. And he looked at me, and I got the feeling and the goosebumps. And he goes, "Life doesn't get better than this." Because we're looking up at Buckingham Palace. We're both in the Aussie uniforms, going under the Marble Arch. And I'm like, "This is amazing. I just hope this race never ends." And it was incredible. I mean, most triathlons you don't have in London full road closure.
Yeah.
It just doesn't happen. And it was because it was the Olympic course that they had full road closure.
Yeah.
So it was, a very incredible experience. So when I was coming down the finishing chute, I had the Aussie flags and I was like so ecstatic. You would have thought I'd won the Olympics. I must have been like, someone said to me, "Where did you come?" And I'm like, "I have no idea. Probably like, 170th or something. I have no idea. I didn't care. I just, there. I didn't care. I was there and I experienced it. It was incredible. I mean, we had the opening ceremony at Trafalgar Square. It was incredible. So it was just the joy of actually being able to compete and in such a beautiful setting, being in the middle of London. It's, for Aussies, I know most of us have probably been to London. London is magical. It's just so different to here. It's just got a magic about it. So yeah, it was good.
So tell me then, again, kind of shifting gears a little bit, tell me about your goal of touching 1 million lives.
Yeah, it's just that so many people, I think, I often hear as a business coach, people are often telling me about their financial aspirations. I want to be a millionaire, I want to be a millionaire. It's all my problems will be solved if I'm a millionaire, and it's a bit of a thing that I often hear people say. But if someone's going for a goal of being a millionaire, that's when they're dead and gone. It's just very cold. It's not got any purpose or any meaning behind it. So I just thought it would be cool to be a millionaire of hearts, because then it means I'm leaving a legacy that's just going to carry on. Like with Opportunity International, I do a workshop or an event, and we might raise $200. Well, we've just changed the lives of 2 families, and after we're dead and gone, those 2 families' lives have changed forever because of that one tiny event, because that's allowed their child to go to school.
Yeah.
And that's, to me, that's just much more, what's the word when it keeps going? It just keeps going. It's leaving a legacy well past when I'm gone. So it just seems like it's got more depth and more meaning behind it, and a lot more fun. A lot more fun.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
That's
Renee, even for my Christmas present, made me a beautiful website with a millionaire of hearts for people to go on, and we can start to measure how many hearts, so that we
That's
can.
really cool, Renee.
Yeah, I couldn't stop crying when she showed it to me. It was
She's
amazing.
And your daughter wasn't happy.
Right. Oh yes.
Much better present than her.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. I think she bought me tea towels. But they were Country Road tea towels.
Okay.
I've never had Country Road tea towels. I've only had Big W pack ones. So yeah.
So my final question
Yeah.
for you, and we have some time to other people to ask questions as well, but what advice would you give your 20-year-old self?
Mm-hmm.
Now, looking back at all the things that you've experienced, all that
Yes.
you've gone through and learned, what would you do?
Probably just trust your heart, really. Business-wise, I wish I've had decided to have a savings fund from when I was a young child, instead of being so out there with business and out there with with property investing and business investing and all this. Just trust your heart that you'll make the right decisions. And I think that has held me in good stead. But yeah, I keep saying to the kids, start a savings fund now. Just save now.
Yeah.
So yeah, probably that would be it. That's all.
Thank you. Appreciate
That's
that.
all right. So yes,
there's the
that was
photo.
20th birthday, 50th birthday.
Yeah, wow.
So yeah, funny.
That's great. Are there any other questions from anyone whilst we have this moment? It's good. There's a lot.
Yes.
Oh,
You're
sorry.
very, very inspiring. Really, thank you so much. I work in disability employment, and lots of people go through difficulties. Of course, some of them strengthens them. Disability strengthens them, but lots of them, it's puts them in a very
supporting. I mean, even when I was sick myself, I still was supporting 2 children and a husband that was an alcoholic. You know, he would come and see me in hospital reeking of alcohol, and it would just make my blood boil. So it was like I'm the supporter. I had children. I had to be for them. So I think in my instance, when I'm the supporter, and you're giving your oath and your love and your trust to somebody else, I'm always wanting to honour that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I understand that.
If I was a lone person and I was burnt myself, or maybe I would have just jumped off the closest cliff. It wouldn't have mattered. But I couldn't, because it wasn't, I was the supporter, it wasn't me.
Thank you.
Thanks, Peggy.
That's all right, thank you.
Brent, do you have a...
I was just wondering, are you still friends with your neighbours?
If I saw them walking along the street, I would recognise them and see them. They were just a beautiful family. But yeah, it was an Aboriginal home, and it was annoying when they left because the Aboriginal authority decided to move them on because they wanted to develop the site. But it was like, this is a family that, years gone by had become a really good part of the community. He coached the football team, and they were well loved in the schools. They had 4 children. They were a beautiful family, neither of them drunk at all. Every Christmas day he would come and knock on our door and say, "Merry Christmas to you and your family." And they were just lovely family. And they moved them on because they wanted to develop the site, which was a real shame because he was a stolen child. He was one of the kids that had been stolen. And so he'd done, he had a beautiful family. So yeah, so once they moved them on, I don't know what happened to them. So yeah.
Yeah, Liz.
Oh, you've got this hard question.
No. I had a variety, so what was going to come up. But I love your honesty, and I've heard your story, and the courageous way you tell it's beautiful. What's next for you? What's the next, like, besides the 1 million, which is amazing, but the next big goal then, because I know you set some goals. What's the next big one for you?
Yeah, I'm writing a book at the moment, as you know, and Renee's helping me with it. Every day we're working hard on it. So that goal is to have that published before the end of this year. It was tonight was to have the launch of it, but it just didn't happen that way. So I'm hoping our next little milestone is the day we've chosen. It's the
International Happiness Day.
International
Day of Happiness, November 13th.
Yes, so that's the next date we've chosen for the launch. So we're hoping we'll have it then. And then once that's published, then I'll publish the book that I was working on before, which is my full life story, and that will be next. And we're working on a way that I can help people globally with a planning platform online, so that I can help more people globally. So that way we'll be able to touch.
And that's just in your 50s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what my hope is, to be able to help more people.
Nice.
That's the goal. Thank you.
Completely haven't mentioned this at all tonight.
That wasn't scary.
This is just one of Suzzanne's global awards for part of her business work with Action Coach Business Coaching. So haven't even mentioned that. Haven't even asked about that. That's just another area of her life which is
It's pretty heavy, hey?
It's really quite heavy.
It's so annoying because I didn't allow for that in my nugget. It's very heavy.
Yeah.
So
Because that was
just a few weeks ago. In Edinburgh.
In Edinburgh, you got that.
Yeah.
Extraordinary. That is.
Renee
really...
has a question.
Oh, sorry, Renee, go.
OCD's kicking in. I have missed the last photo, so I'm just going to bring it up.
Oh, okay.
What was it?
Just touching on where your husband David is now.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
And so you've spoken about where you are now, how you've overcome it, but I think it's important to collectively tell where your husband's
That's
at
really
now,
good.
what he's come through.
Renee.
So
Renee, who was in his yoga class last night,
yeah.
he 10 years ago stopped drinking. That was him. 40. That's him at 60. He's now a yoga teacher, personal trainer, and inspires many people. He doesn't drink. anymore, doesn't smoke, doesn't do drugs, doesn't eat meat, and is basically devoted his life to helping other people get through dark times and come out the other end as better people, and to help other people change their lives. So now I don't have a drinking partner anymore. I have to get Renee to have a glass of wine with me. But I do have a beautiful yoga. Thank you. That's good. That's good. I have a beautiful yoga teacher. We have a studio in our house, so I get yoga regularly, and we meditate together every day. He's learnt meditation to get through the pain, and so we meditate together. Get up at 5 in the morning and do an exercise, and and it's lovely to see him change other people's lives, because he was in such a bad state. He was in such a bad state. So the day he sort of decided to turn around was when our daughter wrote him a letter and asked him to stop. And he's still got the letter in his bedside table, and he often reads it, because he was just in such a bad state. I was doing a triathlon. He'd taken her to Surf Life-Saving Carnival. He got drunk the night before because I was away doing a race, and so he took her, probably still drunk, drove her to the Surf Life-Saving Carnival, crawled into the hills, went to sleep, and then midday comes, and they're all looking for their parents, and there's no dad. And we've got a little 8-year-old or 6-year-old or however she was. Where's your parent? Where's your dad? How'd you get here? My dad. Where was he? Nowhere to be seen. So the parents scoured the sandhills, found him. Now this is someone who had 3rd-degree burns to 30% of his body, and 2nd-degree whatever to the rest. He'd been in the sandhills since 6 in the morning. It's now midday. And he was not in a good state, and she was really embarrassed, and the parents were really disgusted in him. And so that's when she told me when I got home, and I said, well, write a letter. And when he got it, he's like, did you get her to do this letter? I'm like, no, nothing to do with me, mate. And so, yeah, he kept that letter, and he decided to stop. So he did. Thank goodness. So yeah, so that's my amazing. He's called the Phoenix. One day he walked downstairs and said, I have a new name. Everyone's like, well, I'm not very good at the Scottish accent. I have a new name. He's like, I am the Phoenix. And everyone's like, what? And he goes, I've risen from the ashes. I am the Phoenix. And that was what. So he's nicknamed the Phoenix, because he's got a new life and come through the burn.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, that is all we have time for. Can we please thank Suzzanne?
Thank you.